Hello, everybody. I would like to say a really big thank you for tuning in to listening to our second International Women and Girls in Science broadcast. It's a broadcast this year rather than the Zoom that we did last year, because we realised that you're probably all zoomed out and you might like to just watch this at your leisure. So we've got a great panel in front of us today, and I'd like to start by asking them to introduce themselves. Charlotte, can I start with you, please?
Hi everyone, my name's Charlotte Adams and I'm the Principal Manager for My Water Heat at the Coal Authority. We're a government organisation and my work involves using the water within the UK's abandoned mines for geothermal heat. I was the first person in my family to go to university. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, so I picked my favourite subjects, which were earth science and chemistry. I'd had childhood holidays in Scotland, so I thought I'd like to study there. And I was really pleased to be offered a place at St Andrews. I took a bar job whilst I was there to support my studies, as unfortunately my dad was made redundant just as I left home to go to uni. And then through doing my dissertation, I made connections with the Environment Agency, and that formed the basis for doing my PhD at Newcastle University. Whilst I was doing that, I did an art qualification at Northumbria Uni because I love creative stuff as well. And since then, I've worked in industry, academia and now government, and have strong links still with Durham University, which is why they've invited me to join you today.
Lovely. Ingrid, can we come to you, please?
Hello, everybody. I'm very pleased to join today. I really appreciate your invitation. My name is Ingrid Machad. I am from Venezuela. I am chemical engineer. I have more than 70 years of experience in oil and gas industry, especially in the refining area. I am working there as a process engineer. What does a process engineer? Well, with my engineering career, I have had the opportunity to work in many areas. I have worked as a research in the catalytic area to perform catalysis for the refining to convert, for example, oil in fuels or gasoline. I also have worked in major engineering projects to design equipment, reactors, some kind of equipment for the process engineer. I also have worked as a project manager and so on. One of the things I really enjoy with my career, with my profession, is the opportunity to work in teams, to find a solution, to find the design of equipment, but with a really combination of many skills, many people working behind that design, and make decisions with the opinion of many other co-workers. That is very excited for me in my career. Thank you for the invitation in this panel.
That sounds great. In this country, we have a little saying, which is there's no I in team. And lots of people work and thrive in a team situation. So thank you for that. Beth, over to you.
Thanks. So I'm Beth Bromley and I'm an associate professor in the physics department at Durham University. My research part of my role, I look at the way in which the physics that underpins how protein molecules, so molecules in all of your cells, communicate with each other. Another part of my role is in teaching undergraduates, where I teach mostly the laboratory modules in my department. And that's sort of my favourite part of my job, is teaching the students in the labs. I love to see people's understanding of physics develop as they actually get their hands on equipment that can measure some of the things that they've been learning about in their lecture courses. So I think I arrived in my role in a pretty sort of standard way to end up there. So I studied science-related A-levels and then did a degree in physics and then did a PhD in physics and then did some postdoctoral research work in different places across the country and eventually landed in Durham, where I've become an associate professor. Thank you.
Very good, thank you. Now, Henna, over to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Henna and I'm a maths and engineering researcher at Durham University. So my work focuses on offshore wind energy, and I work in a team of other researchers and people outside the university. So I think my kind of interest in science started as a child. I was very curious about how things worked, how the world around me worked. And I'd be constantly asking my parents, why does this happen and how does this work? And this kind of led me into doing maths. Maths became my passion, and I went on to do a maths degree first. And then I wanted to do something that was a bit more applied. And so after my maths degree, I used a lot of the skills that I developed there and went to do a PhD in engineering, where I use the mathematical skills and focus them on offshore wind energy. And so that's what I've continued to do now as a researcher here at the university. There are two things that I love about my job. So the first one is that I get to solve fun problems. And the second is the people that I work with. It's great to work with like-minded people and bounce ideas off them.
Excellent, great. Right, we're going to come over to Belinda next. Over to you, love.
Hi, my name's Belinda Humphrey and I'm the Energy Operations Team Leader at Gateshead Council. So in my role, I oversee the operation and maintenance of decarbonisation projects, including district heat networks, exploring mine water heat, as was mentioned by Charlotte earlier on, and also exploring new opportunities around geothermal. Another part of my role, as well as managing my teams, I have a team of 5 people. I also explore new funding opportunities and apply for funding to be brought into the council to allow us to explore these decarbonisation. The favourite part of my role, to be honest, is kind of being the go-between between the technical side and the people on the street. So you get to meet a wide range of people, but there's a lot of people who don't understand or think that the technology is too difficult to understand, and when you can bring that to life for them in a different way and make it real life for them, they can see how much of a difference it makes. So I really like to take people on that journey through decarbonisation and climate change.
Excellent, all very topical. And Sophie, over to you now.
Hi everyone, I'm Sophie and I'm a PhD student currently in the engineering department at Durham University. I've had quite a I'm only 26, but I've had quite an interesting journey to start my PhD. So going back to school, I was interested a lot in physics and the sciences. Actually really struggled with maths, unlike Henna. So it took me a while to pick up that maths ability to support the physics. And I was lucky that I had some inspiring female teachers who really encouraged me to get those skills up to match where I was with the sciences. I also loved art and creative topics and just learning about the world in general. So I did a geography A-level on the side of my maths and physics A-levels. And I wanted to go to my dream university, which was Durham. I was the first person in my immediate family to go to university, but I had family in the Northeast had been to Durham, so I was very, very keen to go there. And then I did my degree in mechanical engineering here, and then a master's in new and renewable energy. So I've always been quite interested in the environment and sustainability, as well as just the engineering and physics of how things work. Then I ended up actually going into industry, working as a building services engineer, which is kind of how energy works within buildings. And I was looking particularly at hospitals and labs. So it's very interesting, things like air control and how careful you have to be about that in things like operating theatres and making sure that you're not using too much energy and being sustainable whilst having these really kind of big and complicated systems within buildings. Then I had the opportunity to come back to Durham to do a PhD in quite a different area. So I've kind of transitioned into electrical engineering, looking at wind turbine generators, and the generator being the component where we're converting mechanical movement from the blades that you see into electrical energy using lots of weird and wonderful magnetics. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. I also do lots of other kind of interesting side projects in the university, getting quite involved in my college here. I've had opportunities to do things like running balls on the side of doing my PhD and big events within the university. So there's always opportunities when you're doing engineering to do lots of other things as well as the hardcore science. You learn things like project management skills, which are really invaluable in this area.
Wow, that sounds interesting. Well, I think these 6 ladies have set out their store quite well. However, there was an awful lot of information to take in there. So don't worry, don't panic. We will be circulating some biographies with the video material when we send this out. So you'll be able to read up on what each of them have just told you there. One of the most important things I think that you need to know, though, is whether there's high demand for female scientists. What's the point of going down this avenue if you're not going to get a job at the end of it? So I wonder, Henna and Sophie, would you like to give me your views on that question? Over to you, Henna.
Yeah, I can start, and then Sophie, you can add in if I miss anything. So I would say I believe at this point in time, there is a demand for people with STEM skills. And so there are many jobs that rely on STEM skills, you know, from software developers to engineers to scientists, researchers, innovation projects. They all rely on STEM skills. On top of this, things like digitalization mean that STEM jobs are growing. So I would say that it appears there are a demand for people, regardless of their gender, with STEM skills. And so this does include a demand for females with science skills. I'd also say that as a scientist, you develop lots of transferable skills. And so if it's something that you enjoy, I would say that there is a wide range of jobs that you could apply for.
Excellent. Sophie, over to you.
Yeah, just adding on from what Henna said there, there's always a demand for people working in STEM. You're always at the forefront of technology, and especially with digitalization, how we've had to adapt in the pandemic to doing everything online. There's always a need. There's always something that comes up and we need that technology there. And I think there is a very high demand for women scientists and also scientists of other marginalized groups as well, to bring their own kind of understanding and feelings of the world, the way they've experienced things differently to, say, men, and bring that forward in innovation. It's really important that we have a whole range, an array of people from all different backgrounds to come into science and bring their own kind of experiences into their kind of creativity to develop and solve problems, as well as their own understanding of the science and the maths and things like that. So it's really important. We want things to be balanced, not just to make it like a fair world and an enjoyable place where we all feel accepted, but it genuinely does bring a huge advantage to have diversity within the workplace, particularly in STEM. We're much better at problem solving when we understand the needs of all different types of people. So I've been kind of very grateful to work alongside men who are very, very want to hear my thoughts as a woman and experiences of the world. And I think it's really important to have that. And I'd love to hear different people's experiences and backgrounds. We work with people internationally. We get to hear about how things might work in their countries and get some more insight there as well. So we're always better when we can work amongst a whole different array of people.
Great, thank you. I just realised I didn't introduce myself at the beginning, so folk have got no idea who I am and why I'm here. So my name's Barbara Vest. My full title is Dr. Barbara Vest, OBE. I will circulate my biography also, but I've worked with the DEI for a number of years now, and I chaired the last meeting of the IWAGIS group. We're calling you IWAGIS, International Women and Girls in Science. There you are. The energy sector is absolutely strewn with loads of acronyms, so you've got your own. So what we did was we went through the questions that were submitted last time we recorded, added to them some of the questions that have been received this time round. And I've got a list here of 30-something questions. We might not get through them all in the allotted time. If we don't cover off any burning questions you have, you'll be able to submit them later and get in touch with us, and we will answer them. So eyes down, look in, I'm going for the first one on my list. So this is going to Belinda, Ingrid and Henna. What characteristic or quality that you have learned from working or studying in the science field would you like to tell us about? And Belinda, I'm coming to you first.
Thank you, Barbara. So the characteristic I've learned is that you don't need to have all of the technical knowledge. You don't have to have a technical mind. So, and my background, which I didn't talk about before, is I've not actually been to university. So all of my learning I've done whilst I've worked. So I've done on the job courses, recently doing a level 5 apprenticeship and also project management qualifications. And I think it's really important, building on what Henna and Sophie just said in the previous question, is that there is a role for everybody in science, and it's not necessarily just the lab work and things that you do in school. Science is so much wider than that now. There's so many different roles, and you need people from different backgrounds. So you might not be naturally academic, you might not be very good at writing reports, but you might have a really good creative mind. You might be really good at problem solving, or you might be really good at bringing people together, managing projects, finding solutions to things. And there is a need for all of those different skills. And I think for me personally, for a long time, I kind of not beat myself up. That was a little bit hard on myself because I didn't have a degree and other people around me did. And it's quite difficult in a room to not feel overwhelmed by the qualifications of other people. But from conversations with people like Charlotte, who's here today, you realise that those people might feel the same way about skills you have. So you might have leadership skills or project management skills that they don't have. So I think it's just really important that you remember that everybody has something to bring to the table. You don't necessarily need to understand really complicated equations or chemical formula or anything like that. You can bring a different side to it and still be involved and make a difference.
Yeah, well said. Okay, Ingrid, over to you.
Okay. Well, I agree with Belinda. When we start studying a career in STEM, we don't know many of the skills that we, after experience the job, the work, you learn during the experience in the company, in the activities that you are responsible. In my case, one of the quality or skill that I have learned during my whole trajectory is the critical analysis, critical thinking, to understand what happened when you think that something was black and the result was white. So what happened? What happened there? So this is a very important skill that I have learned with experience. And I applied not only in my professional career, but also in my life, no? To understand how to solve a problem, how to go to the solution, to the best solution. The other skills that I think I have learned or I have input in my job is the curiosity. We have to be curious. We have to use that motivation to find a reply, to find results in the lab test, in the design. So I think that we can learn so much skills during STEM careers, and with of course when we are going in contact with many other people that have many other skills, and we learn a lot of that kind of issues, of that kind of people that explain us, and we can use that skills during the career. So I think this is my experience.
Yeah, thank you. And Henna, have you anything to add on that one?
I was just going to add, I think one of the things that I've learned is to be determined, to keep going when things don't go so well. And yeah, because eventually they will go well. And so, yeah, that's just one thing I wanted to add there.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you. Now, the next question we have is was submitted by somebody who really didn't know what A-levels to settle on, which ones to take. And they wondered what inspired members of the panel to become a scientist. So I think I'd like to start with Beth, and then we'll go to Charlotte for this one. So Beth, over to you.
Okay, thank you. I think my primary inspiration for being a scientist is definitely just the natural world around us. So when you see amazing things happening around you, and that sort of drive to understand why and how things occur. Just flicking through Twitter as you do, and people posting things that say, Serena Williams defying the laws of physics with this spectacular tennis shot, and I would always be sat there thinking, no, I don't think the laws of physics have been defied. However, I don't understand how that happened either. So, that's been the drive for me, is to realize that there are these underpinning rules that govern how things occur all around us every day, but they're not necessarily straightforward in terms of how they work. And that's always been the interest for me, is getting to the bottom of those kind of mysteries. Yeah. So I particularly kind of settled on the areas of science that I was interested in, by going through the process of being in school and seeing the different disciplines being taught. And, the areas that really always created that feeling in me of like, oh, that is how that works, that lovely feeling of just finally understanding something coming clear. So I think that's what really inspired me to become a scientist.
Brilliant. And Charlotte? Oh, are you on mute?
There we go. I think, like Beth, I was interested in the world around me and how everything works. And then I had some really good teachers at school, and they really inspired me into science. Chemistry and geology teacher particularly, who I'm actually still in touch with now and come to talks and things, even though I did my A-levels back in the 90s. And I think it's really important to choose something you enjoy, which is what I did. I learn better by actually seeing things and doing things. I'm quite a practical kind of person. I don't class myself as a very academic person. So I picked subjects that had practical elements. I like the lab work. I like doing experiments in chemistry. With geology, I like being outside, and the fact that everything happened goodness knows how many million years ago. You have to make some inferences and be creative about your reasons for how you think things happened. So I think very much picking things that you enjoy, because it does make it easier to do, would be the key thing if you don't know what to do. And have a look at some other careers and what people you admire are doing and see how they got into it too.
Yeah. It's quite interesting, Charlotte, you mentioned there, that you do some office work or lab work. Ingrid, do you have a split like that in your working week? Office comparing to lab work?
Yeah, during my job experience, I have had the opportunity to work in a balanced task or balanced activities. I have worked in laboratory making some experiments. More or less 20% of my hours in the job was about laboratory. I also have to go to the field, to the refining, to make some technical assistance directly in the field. And of course, the other part of my time is in the office to create their technical reports, to participate in meetings with the clients, with the people of the project. So I think that working in engineering have given me so much opportunities to participate in different things. But at the end, we complement all the things and we create only one product that is the final solution for the client, for the technology, for the institute. It depends what we are working on. But it's very nice to work in different things, but at the end with only one objective, only one goal. So this is my experience in the refining area.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Sophie, I wouldn't mind asking you. We had a question from that was submitted, and it was whether you found it hard to learn new things in science. The questioner said particularly when at school, but I wonder if you have any other examples given your ongoing experience.
Yeah, it can be difficult to learn particular areas and subjects or theories. Sometimes other people pick it up straight away, and I've had it. I'm sitting there weeks later, so like, this is not clicking for me, and that's okay. That is absolutely normal, and that is fine. And people very much, because we're all wired so differently, and we take our own time to figure things out. So if you're in a lesson and you're you know, people are understanding something and you're just sitting there like, I have no idea what's being talked about. I'm totally confused. That is fine. And that's good, because it means it's getting you thinking. And if you're not fully understanding, that means you're trying to, you know, figure it out in your head, maybe further than other people are. Some people sit there and nod like, I understand, and they may not understand. So the biggest thing to do is, if you're not sure on an area or it's not clicking straight away, is just be honest and let the teacher know, or ask questions to people. It can be really easy to have imposter syndrome, it's called, about these things, where you feel like, oh, I feel too embarrassed to say anything. And just try and be honest and be like, I'm not getting this, can you help me talk it through? Or just go back and take your time going over it. But there'll be times of stuff you'll pick up really easily. It just depends what area of science and where you're in it. I mean, as I said, for me, maths and kind of making the maths and the physics and the science click together was my big issue at school. I found maths really challenging. But I was just, you know, you gain confidence in certain areas. I realized, you know, I can do this. I can pick it up. And then eventually the maths did follow. I managed to get back on top with maths. It took me a while. Even when I started uni, I was like, oh God, the maths is so hard. And I was in lecture courses like, I have no idea what's going on. But I reached out to even if I was a bit too shy, maybe to speak to a lecturer straight away, I'd reach out to my peers and my friends and say, can we sit down, have a coffee, and just go through this if they understood it. And it's about trying to ask those questions, even if you feel embarrassed, and you will get there. There'll be things that you'll pick up straight away, and you can help other people with that. So it becomes a very collaborative thing while you're learning. And when you do get it, it feels great. Like, yes, I understand it.
Beth said, yeah.
Problem solved like that.
Yeah. Can I just ask a supplemental then, right? When you're on about asking for help or, you know, finding things difficult, do you think it's much harder being a woman in science? Do you have to work harder than your male counterparts, or, you know, do you get real recognition, you know, the same as they do?
It can be that it does feel harder than your male counterparts to ask questions, particularly as sometimes it is a trait of men to be quite overly confident about their ability. So you feel like, oh, how come everyone in the room gets this and I don't? But hopefully, I mean, I've personally had pretty good experiences with the men I've worked with who are very helpful and understanding. I think sometimes in schools, women are really disadvantaged and may not have the confidence. But some men do recognise, they are very aware of some of the gender imbalances within science, so they are supportive. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it can be sometimes more difficult as a woman in science. I'm being honest, it can be. But you know, when I kind of look back at thinking, oh, okay, I was the 15% of women in my university course. And I'm proud of that, because I'm like, okay, well, I succeeded the same, if not better than the men there. And I've kind of been met with maybe more societal challenges as a woman and challenges at school, but I've made it, and you can feel really proud of yourself for that. So if you can, you know, push through the barriers that sadly are there for us, you know, you can feel great about it and know that you've really conquered something and you can give back, which is, I guess, why we're all here today. We want to encourage you to come into this so that we adjust and like look at that balance. So yeah, I think, you know, you don't have to be like really assertive to be to battle out the men in this area. You just show your true skill and be your true self, and you know, your performance will shine through. We have a lot to bring.
So true. Yeah, Beth,
thank you.
To add?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I found this to be quite different between sort of being at school, where I found it quite difficult to, you know, come forward and to, you know, because I was very interested in science and, you know, I wanted to keep asking questions in class all of the time, but I always felt quite a, you know, a sort of social pressure not to do that as much as I wanted to. So at sort of school level, I did find that quite difficult, bearing in mind this is obviously quite a long time ago now. But when I came to university, I actually found that those kind of tendencies, you know, actually gave me an advantage. So I was keener to reach out for help and to admit that I was struggling with things and to keep asking lots of different people. And I actually saw some of my sort of male colleagues struggling to do that. You know, they found it harder to admit they were stuck, and that actually held them back, you know, in some ways more than myself and some of my other female students on the course. I think, you know, it's sort of the challenges that different groups face change as you sort of move through the system. And I think, yeah, again, at PhD level, I found that willingness to reach out and to admit that you're stuck, you know, was really valuable trait. And I saw a lot of female students, you know, really doing that, engaging with that and doing well. And then, you know, as you get higher up, you know, again, there can be quite a lot of pressure to not look like you need help. And that is something that I think, you know, we're trying to change, particularly within academia. And actually, as we get more diverse, as we get more opinions into these spaces, that is naturally evolving. And I think in some ways, one of the main benefits for this whole change can be that men are finding it more, you know, easier to ask for help, you know, and we can all start to have a much more supportive environment within the sciences than has been there in the past. So I think, yeah, that for me is a huge part of the changes that are happening in STEM at the moment.
Great, that's really good to hear. As a female who was amongst mostly male colleagues in the past, I remember asking questions and the lads sidling up to me afterwards saying, I'm really pleased you asked that question, Barbara, because it was just on the tip of my tongue and I couldn't bring myself to ask it. Well, be the one who asks the question. If they're sick of you, they'll just tell you to shut up for 5 minutes. Doesn't hurt. Anyway, right, onward and upward. Belinda, I'm coming to you next. So what's your opinion on apprenticeships in sciences compared to a degree or other courses? You've explained to us that you have come into the industry via another route. So be keen to hear your answer for that. No, can you hear us, Belinda?
Apologies, yes.
That's all right.
So yes, my apprenticeship was in leadership and management that I did through work. So it was the equivalent of an undergraduate degree. I have, at the same time as that, I did also do my Prince 2 project management. So they're not directly science related, but I was working in the energy sector within local government at a time. And I also completed some energy qualifications through, excuse me, a Northeast based company, National Energy Action, to improve my energy knowledge. And then a lot of my knowledge has been learning on the job. So through webinars, especially through lockdown and things, the ways of learning have changed and have opened up a lot more opportunities for you to attend a lot more kind of different learning and watch things back on YouTube of recordings of sessions like this. So there's a lot more opportunity to get out there and expand your knowledge. I think it has been a little bit different not going to university, and at times it did hold me back from progressing in my career, because some jobs you do need to have a degree. It doesn't always matter what it's in for a job, but sometimes you just need to have that piece of paper, which was one of the reasons, as well as wanting to develop myself, is that I carried out my apprenticeship so that I could further my career as well. So there is lots of different ways. I mean, I dropped out of doing A levels and I went back and did a BTEC in graphic design the following year. So it's not kind of your standard way. And then I wasn't sure if I wanted to go to university, so I worked, and the first 9 years of my career were in retail, which is not anything to do with science, but I worked my way up into a management position, and there's a lot of transferable skills, working with people, leadership skills, kind of that communication. So it's not, if you're not sure if you want to go to university, if it's not sure, you're not sure kind of what you want to do, you've got your whole life ahead of you to make those decisions. And my view is you're never too old to learn something new. So you can always, you can get to the age of 30, 40, whatever, and say, do you know what, I'm not sure how, I want to go and try something new. I want to try that thing I always wish I did when I was younger, and you can go and do it.
Brilliant. Sorry, I wasn't shaking my head at you. There was somebody walking down my garden path, so I was trying to get them to go away. I was listening. Okay, thank you. Oh, live recording. This is what you have to deal with, darlings. Right. I'm going to ask a couple of questions here, and I'm going to come to Charlotte, Henna, and Ingrid. So how did you know which courses would be best for you in university? And then what are the advantages of doing a PhD, and how has it helped your job? And I think it's the sort of yin to your yang, Belinda, for the question that you just had. So Charlotte, this is over to you first.
Thank you. I chose the courses, I had a look to see what was available. I'd kind of narrowed it down. My A-levels were physics, chemistry and earth science, and I knew I wanted to carry on with the physics and chemistry because those were the ones I'd enjoyed most. I was pretty sure I wanted to do earth science as my predominant subject, but the course I found, you also had to do chemistry for 2 years, so that was quite good because at that point, I could have switched and been a chemist today rather than an earth scientist. So I think looking for courses that maybe have a bit of flexibility, and I think they are quite good at getting you to do a range of subjects in your first year. So you have got options to change if you've chosen something that doesn't feel right for you. So yeah, very much see what's out there, go and have a look at a few universities, talk to some students if you can about their experiences. A lot more stuff available online than there was in my day, so it should be easier to find out that kind of information. And in terms of my PhD, I think it's helped me because I still use those skills every day in my job now. And my job is a bit unusual, pumping water out of mines to make geothermal. I've got friends that would rather hack their head off than do that for a living, but there's not that many people in the UK doing it. And now we're needing that skill. And having a PhD means that I did have the opportunity to study mining and the water within mines and all of those aspects that I use today in much more detail to allow me to develop expertise, which is now being called on. So I think for developing expertise in a specific area that you're really interested in, then that's opened a lot of doors for me. It's enabled me to work both in consultancy. I was assistant professor at Durham when I left there 2 years ago. So I've worked in academia and I'm now working for a government organisation. So it's given me quite a bit of flexibility, but I think it's probably that key drilling down into your subject, to be pardoned the pun, to get the real knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, thanks. Henna, how about you?
I would say about choosing which course is best for you at university is what I did is probably what I do in everything in my life, is just pick something that I enjoy doing. So whether that be my course at university, a job later on, what I want to spend doing in my free time, it's always to do something you enjoy. And I say that about a course at university because a course at university is 3-4 years maybe. It's a significant amount of time, and you're spending all week doing that. So you have to really enjoy it. And so for me at school, I was doing A-levels in maths, further maths, physics and chemistry. And at that time, I just really loved maths and was starting to not enjoy physics and chemistry so much. So I knew at that point that I would really like to carry on with the maths. And so that's what I did. And I really did enjoy my 4 years at Durham doing that. But as I said in my introduction, I wanted to do something a bit more applied. And so then I moved on to do a PhD in engineering. And I completed that last year. So I'd say that the skills that I developed from that I think are useful going forward are, as Charlotte said, you learn a lot about a very specific subject, and so you have a good foundation to move on from. But I also think you learn a lot of other skills, and you have a lot of, so PhD is 3-4, maybe more time than that, so 4 years. So you have a lot of time to develop other skills, which I think has been very useful for me going forward. So skills such as project management. I had to manage my own PhD project. Mm-hmm. I developed skills in communication, so talking to other people, and written communication, writing reports, papers, my thesis. There are so many other skills that you develop that I think are really useful going forward.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, that's really helpful. And Ingrid, do you have anything to add on this one?
Yes, well, I remember when I was at school, I remember that I was good in math, of course, and physics and chemistry, but studying engineering at that moment was not an option for me, because it means that I have to move to another city to study, because the department of engineering was not in my city, in another. So it was not in my parents' budget. So it's also, no? So I remember that I was enrolling in my career, and I think, well, I'm going to study languages, maybe. I don't know. But I in that moment, something happened, and I decide in this moment to enroll to engineering. And I say, okay, after that, I don't know how I want to do that, but let's see. When I come back to my home, my mother say, hey, did you enroll in the language? No, mom, I enrolled in engineering. What? Are you crazy? What are you going to do? I don't know, but I'm going to enroll in that thing that I want to I need to study that. So I remember that I say, well, if I don't like that, I change in my career. But not, I never do that. I when I start to study, I really in love of the engineering career. And well, after that, I have studied master chemical engineering. I have complemented my skill with management, my project management, as Hannah say. We have to develop many skills during the whole career, and I have always studied something, because I like study, like to be updated with the technology change very fast. So it's something that I love. Now I am running my master in here in Durham University in energy too, in renewable energy. So I think that it's part of our I don't know what you feel. I think that many benefits when you when you love what you do, when you study what you want, you are finding many opportunities in the path. So this is my experience when I decided to study engineering.
Yeah, it's lovely that in your answers you're covering several different types of subjects. And one of our students asked, when choosing art as a GCSE, how does this link into science or engineering? And I think, Charlotte, you mentioned art earlier on. I'll come to you first, and then Belinda and Sophie, because I think you both have something to add along on that question. So Charlotte.
Yeah, I think we've got a few creatives on this call who are scientists and creatives, and I've found that as well in people I've talked to through work as well. And for me, I've always enjoyed doing art. I did art GCSE, started at A-level, but the workload was so high, it dropped off and the science took place just to try and fit everything in. But I knew that the art was something I could keep going, even if I didn't formally study it for an A-level. And I have done, so I still kind of make and create things now, kind of like 3D stuff, sculpture type stuff, and drawing and painting, those kind of things. But I use it a bit in my work as well. So we deal a lot with maps, and a lot of the stuff we're doing is underground. So you have to kind of imagine what's there before we go and do a drilling project. We effectively drill the well on paper. So we design the well. So you get to sketch things out, what you think it looks like, where you think the holes are, where the mine workings are. So you still get to use some of that and putting presentations together, obviously using that creative skill set there, and also what creativity, I can't say the word, creativity helps you develop in terms of skills and problem solving, fits really well with science, I feel, as well.
Yeah, excellent. Belinda?
I completely agree. So as I mentioned before, I did a graphic design at BTEC instead of A-levels. And although I didn't go to continue to do that at university, it does still come into my role now, even if it's using that creative side of your brain for problem solving and solution finding, different ways of thinking. I think it really helps you to think about how you communicate things to people as well, how we can bring things to life, so how we can make science more accessible for a wider audience. Some people prefer a written report, some people prefer something more visually appealing, and now I think there's more understanding of how different people's brains work and how different people learn. So I think doing art as well is a really good kind of complement to science, and to keep that creativity in there.
Thank you. Sophie.
Yeah, exactly what Charlotte and Belinda have said. It really does kind of play into the sciences, and I don't think it gets talked about enough how creative the sciences actually are. I remember having my English teacher at GCSE when I told her what my A-levels were going to be in physics and things, and she was like, "Oh, I can't believe you're dropping creative subjects. You're going into something so not creative." And I was like, "No, actually, I think the sciences is probably as creative as you get." And that's kind of actually why I went more engineering route with my love of arts, rather than just pure physics, just personally, because I just like the idea of doing CAD, which is computer aided design, and doing things like 3D models and drawings. I'd always had that kind of technical mix with kind of visual viewing and understanding of the world and things. So yeah, I've used it very much, my kind of creative side. I also do quite a bit of graphic design in my spare time, as well as kind of drawing and painting. So if I'm doing a presentation at a conference, I sounds a bit boastful, but I think my presentations are pretty good, and it shows something different about me that I can put forward when I'm trying to communicate something about the engineering or a drawing. If you're good at visualizing things and you're good at kind of making other people understand that aesthetic, then that's really important in communicating the science. So yeah, it's definitely a huge skill. And I mean, if you think about some of the most famous people in the history of humankind, Leonardo da Vinci was a artist and a scientist and inventor at the same time. So they very much tie into one another. And even if you go pure science, you're like, "Oh, I miss just drawing and painting." As Charlotte's saying, you can do it on the side, and I do little commission projects and still do art on the side. It's nice to do it at the end of a day if I do have more of a coding day or something like that.
So when you were at school, did you absolutely love science, or did you think that was a route to get you to what you eventually wanted to do?
Is that one for me or for anyone?
Yeah.
So I really loved physics. I've always loved physics. I think that started with a love of kind of not just like the biology of nature and how things work, but kind of much more fundamental. So you hear about Newton's laws and like the apple from the tree, and then looking up to the stars and gaining an interest in astronomy. So I always had that interest in like really fundamental science. But I wasn't too sure what I wanted to do. I thought about a few things. I thought about marine biology at one point. I thought about actually going for a more like geophysics route, a little bit more like something that Charlotte's doing and doing earth sciences. But yeah, the engineering then kind of, I was lucky in my school, they did like a kind of welcome to engineering kind of side project, which kind of was part of the, I've forgotten the name of it now, but I'll make sure to put it in the questions because it's still running now. It's like an engineering education scheme. And my school were running a group project for that. And that's what opened my eyes to what engineering was, because you don't always hear about it in schools because it's not a major subject or an A-level. And that's when I realized, oh, this is for me, because I can put my love of physics and how things work into an applied setting and kind of input my creativity via drawings and stuff. So that's how I ended up going. My A-levels were in maths, physics and geography in the end, but I did an arts when we used to have AS levels, which was kind of a 1 year of A levels, and dropped it. I did art in that, but a bit like Charlotte, it was quite a lot of workload, so I ended up not carrying that on.
And Beth, I could see you nodding away when I asked that question. Did you enjoy or hate science at school?
Yeah, so I was going to say that I feel like I had a love-hate relationship with it. It was very passionate, but not necessarily always positive. And I think, I had the things that I loved were the things where I kind of had a framework already, that I could understand the information as it was being presented, and you sort of feel like, oh, yep, I'm hearing things that all make perfect sense. This is glorious and this feels wonderful. And the things that I hated were where I didn't have that framework. I didn't have that organization or an understanding of the relationships between the different pieces of information. And so for me, that was like organic chemistry. It was, it might as well have been the dates of his, events in history. It was just something that had to be memorized because I could not, find that principle to organize it. So I really, did not get on with that at all. And so, yeah, I think, my sort of advice to people who are sort of struggling a bit with science, like they feel they should, get on better with it, or they need it for a future career. I think the way to enjoy it is to go after those principles, go after those relationships and find the ways in which things that you're learning now relate to things that you've seen before, maybe even in different areas of science or even outside of science. A lot of the ways in which information relates to other bits of information can be drawn from other areas in life as well. So I think it's, try not to think of it as, or, even if you're experiencing it as a big long list of stuff that you need to know. And I don't know really how enjoyable that is under any circumstances. Reach for those sort of relationships, those guiding principles, and try and find the connections to the things that you're learning in other areas, and that will help ground it and help it start become, the picture to become clear. And that's when you'll start loving it again.
Right. Okay. I've got a couple of different questions here. The first one, I'm going to come to Henna and ask what revision techniques really helped you do well and succeed. And then I'm going to come to Charlotte and ask about preparing for interviews or submitting Ucas forms. So Henna, first of all, any tips for revision techniques that might help?
So for me, I had to do lots of different techniques. I didn't have one technique that worked for every subject. I had to try lots of different things. And I also found working in different spaces helped me as well. So I wasn't always in the same space. And so sometimes I would work on my kitchen floor. Sometimes I would work on the stairs. Just in my brain, I think I just like to have that change of position and change of environment, and it helped me learn that particular thing I was trying to learn. So that's location first, I guess. And then in terms of techniques, I would use a whole range of techniques from, I think probably my favourite was mind maps. So putting all the information that I needed to know onto one piece of paper if I could, or one really big piece of paper with lines drawn across linking different parts. That was really useful for me to try and visualize what I had to learn. Another technique, I think for those things that Beth was mentioning there, where you just have to memorize them, I would use flashcards and try and, it's on the back and I've got to try and remember it and then turn it over, see if I'm right, that kind of thing. Sometimes it was coming up with little acronyms to try and remember things. So yeah, just a whole range of techniques. And I guess the final one I'll mention there is just practicing. And so practicing different questions, practicing how I would answer them, laying them out in full. Yeah, and then seeing how I go from there.
Right. And Charlotte, if I were a student sitting there now, what sort of things would I need to do to prepare for an interview or write a personal statement? And how would I start beginning to prepare for the Ucas process?
Yeah, I think the advice Henna was saying, to practice things is really good advice. I mean, even now for meetings and things, I always find they go a lot better if I've prepared well for them. So make sure you do set time aside before the interview, or time aside to write and submit your Ucas application. Get someone to read them, so select someone else to read them that won't be the person maybe marking at it and looking at it, and the more the merrier. And especially if they've been through that process already, get them to have a look too and give you feedback, and then action that feedback. And then for kind of interviews for universities, and they're a two-way process, so don't just think of it as being a grilling. Think of it as your way to find out about that opportunity as well. So think about the things they're going to ask you. They're likely going to ask you how you fit with what they're offering is, either the course or the job that you're going for. So think about the type of questions that might come up. How do you see yourself progressing? What skills have you got to offer? But then they often ask at the end if you've got any questions. So it's nice to have a couple of things so they show that you've looked into the opportunity and you have something to say. And also, if it's for a job or a university, look on their web pages, get as much information you can about that organisation so that you're informed and they know that you've done your background research as well. I think Belinda maybe had a comment on this as well she'd like to add.
Yeah, just to build on what you've said there, Charlotte, I think the preparation and research is really important. But I just wanted to share one piece of wisdom that I've been given when applying for jobs and things. But it can also apply to university applications, and that's to focus on your attitude over your ability in some circumstances. So you might not be quite there with the qualification, you might not be quite there with the knowledge, but in my experience, most employers would rather have somebody who is willing to learn and has the right attitude to fit in with their culture, or to fit in with where you work. And so it's kind of focusing on what you can offer as a person, not just your technical knowledge, because if you've got lots of technical knowledge but you're not eager to learn or to push things on, or really innovative or anything, then that might hold you back. So it's kind of focusing on the skills and things that you can offer. I often find it helpful to get a piece of paper and in the mind map thing, but write your name in the middle and think about all the things you've done, because you've probably done a lot more than you think. You've probably got a lot more experience of things you've been through, or if you've done like volunteering or anything like that, kind of skills that you've got and who you are. And it's a little bit of a confidence boost for yourself as well when you write those things down.
Sorry,
you're on
yeah.
mute.
Back in the old days, we used to call that process a SWOT analysis. So it's a strength, a weakness, an opportunity, or a threat. You get a piece of A4 paper and you divide it into quarters, SWOT, and then you're in the middle, and it's what, if you're applying for a job, or if there's some path you're not sure about going down, what strengths have you got that would take you there? What do you need to work upon? What are your weaknesses? Oh, does this lead to a great opportunity for you in future? And the threats can be things like not necessarily who your competitors are at that time, but it's what do you not really know enough of, or where do you have to do more research and things like that. So I'm pleased that those techniques are still out there and being used, because I don't feel such an old person now. Okay, right. Well, I think we're coming to the end of our allotted time, but what I wanted to say is, ladies, thank you very much for everything that you've told us today and all the information that you've shared. I wonder though, are you at the end of your career path now, or possibly just starting something new? If I came to you in 5 to 10 years' time, where do you think you would be? What goals have you set yourself still to achieve? Henna, can I start with you first?
Yeah, sure. So I think I would say, no, I don't think I'm there yet, and I hope I'm not. I hope to continue to improve and grow and develop. And specifically, I would like to gain more experience of applying mathematical techniques to real world problems. I'd also like to develop my coding skills further. And I think on a more personal one, I'd like to improve my confidence and self-belief going forward. So I hope if you were to come to me in 5 or 10 years, Barbara, that I'd feel a bit more confident in my abilities at that point.
Brilliant. I think you're brimming with confidence and ability already, but cranky, in 5 years' time, you're going to be even better. Wow, brilliant. Belinda, what about you, love?
Personally, I find it quite difficult to kind of visualize where I'll be in 5 or 10 years' time. And what I've come to realize is that the world is so vast and there's so many opportunities out there. So I think my key would be, the world is your oyster. You don't need to channel yourself down one path. So in 5 or 10 years' time, I just hope that I keep continue learning new things. And there might be sideways moves, there might be where I can move up the ladder, I might move into kind of different areas. But I think the key for me is the people side and really feeling like you make a difference in the world. So I hope that in 5 to 10 years' time that I'm still in a job that makes a real difference.
Excellent. Beth, what about you?
Yeah, so I think right now I'm at a real crossroads in where I'm going to go next, actually. So I've got a kind of opportunity to go sort of towards in a healthcare direction, which is really interesting me at the moment. And I've got an opportunity to go further into some new physics experiment that we're building at the moment as well. And I also do a lot of work on sort of diversity and inclusion, equality work for the university. And there's a sort of opportunity to kind of move more formally in a direction to work on that. So I think I'll be getting your SWOT analysis out for sure to try and work out what I'm doing next. But 5-10 years, complete mystery to me at the moment, but definitely not done yet.
Excellent. Good luck with everything that you're considering. And Sophie, what about you?
Well, I've got a couple of years left of my PhD, so hopefully I'll make it to the end and become a doctor at some point. But yeah, after that, I'm not too sure, to be honest. I that is kind of a standard position. You don't always know where you're going to be in 5 to 10 years' time. I have decided, though, on my PhD that academia isn't for me. I love working within teams, and I do kind of miss working on like projects directly within industry. So I'm really glad I've tried it. But I think after this, I would love to go back into either industry or government, working within teams. It's a bit like what Ingrid's been saying, loves being around people and working with people. And there's no I in team, and I'm a very much people person type engineer. So I'd love to be doing something like that. I'd love to stay within renewables and wind energy. I want to keep using my engineering skills to, combat climate change and kind of push for increased renewables and improve that technology. So that's really important to me, as long as I stay there. But yeah, I'm just going to go with where I'm happy. I kind of go by mentality of like, you're not always the same person. You kind of have a past self, a current self, and a future self. So I'll see where future me wants to be, and hopefully in a happy, comfortable place.
Excellent. Ingrid, how about you?
Okay, well, Barbara, I say that in 10 years, the world changed day to day. We have many challenges today and in the future. So I hope to be facing in the future this challenge. But there is a thing that I also have thinking about that. I have experience in the industry. Most of my experience is in the industry, and there is something I would like to do maybe in the future is to teach young people in the university, teach junior engineers, and share my knowledge, share my skills, and help many students to develop their careers. So I hope I have the opportunity to do that, because it's something that until now I have done. So I would like to do that. But okay, it's for now, I think to face any challenges that we can have in the future in our engineering, STEM or subjects.
Brilliant. Young engineers, you heard it here first. Ingrid's the one you need to find. And Charlotte, where are you going to be in 5 to 10 years' time?
Well, maybe retired, because I'm older than some of these ladies here, but I suspect not. So yeah, I think I've started a job 2 years ago, and so now there's been obviously a learning curve with that, and I think I related to what Sophie was saying about not knowing exactly what she might want to do after her PhD. And so I started that job, and I've had a time of learning that and getting to grips with it. And now I'm thinking, okay, I'm here, this is how it works. What can I do kind of for myself in terms of personal goals? So I think it's important to check in with yourself at periods to do that, but not give yourself a hard time if you are in a period of changing positions or starting something new or coming to the end of something, to absolutely know what you want to do. But I would like to be the person responsible for delivering lots of geothermal heat to help decarbonise the UK. That's one thing I'd like. Personally, I'd like to get my professional qualifications out of the way. So I'd like to get chartered, something I should have done years ago and I haven't. I've been very lucky to have received awards from some of the professional establishments, and also for my work's just been featured on national media as well. And for me, that's got me thinking about kind of the people who've helped me over my career, and things I would also like to do really would be to help either by mentoring or supporting other people coming along as well. So I'd like to get more formally involved in outreach and STEM, which is why I enjoy being involved with DEI as well, and these type of events. But a few little things there, a few ideas.
Yes, so you alluded to media. I think we need to tune into Country File, as it was where you most recently appeared.
Country
Yeah.
File last Sunday.
Yeah, great. Okay. Well, ladies, thank you very, very much for your time. That has been wonderful. I hope the audience out there is enthused and encouraged by what you've been telling them. For any students who have a burning question that we haven't answered, please, 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 there will be instructions that come out with this recording, and you'll know where to send any follow-up questions. I need to thank Lynn Gibson, who has been sat behind the scenes there and is the one who's going to wrap this all together and make it look wonderful and sparkly and get it out to you. I'd like to thank the DEI for Durham Energy Institute for hosting this meeting and allowing us to make the recording. I'd like to thank Henna, who particularly did an awful lot of the organisation behind getting the questions out with Lynn there as well. And honestly, I just encourage you all to nurture your curious minds, to keep an open mind at all times, because if you don't, you might miss an opportunity. Have a look at that SWOT analysis process. Somebody will be able to show you and walk you through that. That's a little 20-minute lesson to anybody who has the time to do it. And most of all, stay safe. Be lucky in life. Bye.